Hello and welcome back to iPredict. Delighted to be joined again by the usual crew, Paul Leprechaun Flaherty and Sean Bono Sullivan. Lads, let's get straight into it. It's been a bonkers weekend, or should I say a bonkers Sunday, and it was. I have to confess, I can't remember a day as crazy as where so many underdogs won and you thought you'd seen everything in the first game and then it gets even worse. It's been a breath of fresh air, really, Sean. It was just a bonkers day on Sunday, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, unbelievable, Jonathan. It was just brilliant watching it from home. Just seeing the drama unfold. I suppose the Tipperary Cork game got it all underway, and I suppose people, a lot of people out there fancy Tipperary. They obviously saw it as their best opportunity to bridge an 85-year gap to win a Munster Championship. That Cork side, they didn't fear them going to Páirc Uí Chaoimh. They felt they had every chance of winning the game and deserved it. Absolutely deserved it. From the word go, they set their stall out. They weren't going to be pushed around. And I think it was typified in Conor Sweeney's match-winning speech or trophy presentation speech. Those guys went to Cork expecting to win the game. Simple as that. There was no. I know they were jumping around the place after and absolutely thrilled, but that wasn't out of surprise that they won the game. That was out of pure emotion that they had set out to do what they felt they could do. So hats off to them. Fantastic. I was delighted for them. In a segue story, I was over to a Liverpool Champions League game last October. They were at home to Salzburg. Myself and a mate of mine went over, and we ended up in the 12th man bar. Jonathan, I know you know it well. I was meeting the contact in there for our tickets, and we sat down. We got our tickets, and we sat down. We had plenty of time before the kickoff, excuse me, and we sat down, of course, to have a beverage. And we actually, as I sat down, I recognised a few faces in the table next to me, and it turns out they recognised us too, or they recognised me too. I wouldn't have played against them a lot, but Michael Quinlivan and Cavan were actually sitting at the table. Now, I won't go into what I can't recall a whole pile of the conversation, but we had a great laugh with the lads for a good hour before the kickoff. But of course, all the talk was about Kerry football, Tipperary football. They didn't sit there and say they were going to win the Munster Championship, but you could just, gather from talking to the lads that they were really, really committed fellas, and Tipperary football was just in their blood. And I even remember, it's weird how the year has worked out for Quinlivan and another couple of them, because I think they had left the panel for different reasons, and because of COVID, they were back in because with the way the season was with a late start. So it's unbelievable how things can work out. So I'm delighted for those guys, because they've really persevered with Tipperary football through some dark days. So that got Sunday off to a massive start. And
I've asked you before we go on to the next one. I've got to ask the $1 million question, and sorry to put in the Kerry reaction to that. Does it feel like a missed opportunity, or I know it's happened to some people and some are delighted they just didn't want to see Cork going on to win it, and then that's the old, I suppose, childish for want of a better, you grew up with your big rivals and stuff like that. It's a hard one for me to explain. I thought Cork would just about have enough once they got the Kerry thing out of their way. Well, I did kind of fancy Tipp to put up a good bit of a fight, and look, we've seen the improvements in Tipp over the years. I was surprised with how they tore into them and how they didn't give Cork a chance to breathe at all. But just from the Kerry point of view, does it feel like a bit of a one left behind, or does it make that defeat even worse, or what sort of way can you sum it up?
Well, look, not to repeat myself, but I recall doing the podcast the day after Cork beat Kerry, and I wrote in my piece for the Kerry Man, and I wasn't being disrespectful to Cork, but I felt that Kerry lost to Cork. Cork didn't beat Kerry. And that was the feeling down here very much after the game. Kerry never expressed themselves against Cork. I would have Kerry as a better team than Cork by 6, 7, 8 points on any given day. And that's no disrespect to Cork. I find that's where both teams find themselves at the moment. But Cork stuck in there and beat Kerry with the last kick of the game. and went into the Tipperary game as favourites. And I think that's what probably came against Cork. Maybe that underdog tag was gone from them, and they couldn't live up to the billing. Make it worse for Kerry? I think so. I think it's a reflection on a big what if Kerry had gone at Cork the way Tipperary did. I think if they did, they win the game. Tip won by 3 points. I think if Kerry adopt the Tipperary approach and go at it and they let their forwards express themselves, they beat Cork by 6, 7, 8 points. And that's not being big-headed. It's not having this sense of entitlement because we're Kerry. I just felt if you weighed both teams up against each other, Kerry are a better team. Kerry are a better team than Tipperary. But on the given day, they didn't do it. They didn't do what was expected of them, and they were turned over. But yeah, so after watching Tipp create history, we switched over to the north and up to Armagh to watch Cavan and Donegal, a game where nobody gave Cavan a chance.
Oh, well, that's not correct now. We might bring in the leprechaun kit man down here. For those that
absolutely.
didn't watch last week, I think I feel like it's almost we start the show every week with our apologies. We'll have an egg on our face. We did. I hold my hands up. I laughed when you said that, Paul. I thought you were. I'll be brutally honest. I thought you were just taking the piss at the time. The leprechaun kitman, I think it was what you described them. It wasn't, well, there was a mini comeback. I think there was 3 or 4 points down at one stage. It wasn't the big comebacks and the big hurrahs that we've seen in recent week, but we did see an absolutely unbelievable second half performance. A great start to the game, a little bit of a wobble once they got the first black card, but my God, did they tear into Donegal in the second half. And probably a little like Cork and Donegal never really got going at their full potential. The underdogs tore in. Did you? I have to ask you, Paul, did you actually believe that Cavan were going to win last week, or was there a bit of kind of tongue in cheek?
I always believed Cavan were going to win. I watched them against Down that time, and they just came out of nowhere, and I said they just have momentum, and it's great what obviously hunger can do and momentum in championships. So I always thought they were going to beat Donegal, but Donegal, I was just looking back, let's say, on what's the score after the match, because I wanted to see who did the scoring there for Donegal. But in the second half, they only got 3 points, and Paddy McBrearty got a point in the first minute. They didn't score for another 14 minutes. Paddy McBrearty got another free, and then another 14 minutes went by, and it was 65th minute, and McGonigal got a point from play. So they only got 1 point from play in the second half. That's not going to win you any final or nearly any game anyway. So Donegal, I think they'd be ruining their chances there. There was no one really came up for them, Michael Murphy or Langan had 1 or 2 shots, but they went wide, and Darrow Wheel as well. So they couldn't get their shooters on the ball. They just collapsed. No one seemed to kind of take the bull by the horns and really go at it. There's no really Ryan McHugh kind of weaving in and out of players or something like that. But fair play to Cavan. It's an unbelievable achievement. As I would say there, the black cards. They're very, very controversial, and they did very well to bounce back from them. They just kept going. Galligan then midfield, he had some great catches and just great inspirational player. And they all kind of fed off each other. They just, anything they turned over, they'd go again, and they just get a bit of riled up, and they'd go again, So Cavan it was great scenes. It's great to see the underdog doing something, especially in this year when everyone has kind of no hope about what's going to happen, and it's great that we had Cavan and obviously Tipperary winning as well. Probably going back to the Tipp and Cork game there, I would say that Kerry, they really kicked away that game against Cork. As I said on the podcast a week or two ago, Clifford had some good chances, and the other forwards as well. They really kicked that game away. I would agree with Sean that Cork didn't really win it. It was a high ball at the end, and they got a lucky kick into the net. It was very, when you look back at it now, it was kind of a very lucky game that Cork won. But Tipperary were outstanding as well, and it was great to see the 2 underdogs winning the 2 finals on Sunday.
Yeah, and look, I think it'd be remiss of me. He's a guy I remember interviewing. This has gone back a couple of years now. I think he'd just taken over the Cavan job. He had, because Mullinochta were still on. It was a league game in Salt Hill maybe 3 years ago. And interviewed Mickey Graham afterwards, and I have to say, like you do so many interviews with people, and some. And this isn't this is no way a dig at managers or players, whatever, but they've become part of the protocol, and there is times where you can, and understandably so, go through the motions. You take a manager after the game, particularly after a loss, and the last things you want to do is round up and do 2 or 3 interviews. You might have your RTs and whoever else, the other off the balls or whatever, and then go through all the press, and then maybe a local station and a local county board platform as well. So that you can get into rinse and repeat. But I was just taken back with his energy and talking to him and his desire, and like what he done with Molinachta was incredible. What he's done with Cavan, was the first, brought them to an Ulster final, and then winning it again this year, and the scenes and his interview afterwards where he just couldn't talk and he broke down, had to go away. Like, I wouldn't consider myself the most emotional person in the world, but Jesus, you've been nearly reaching for the tissues when you're watching that. But like what he's done, I saw someone describe him earlier. Is he one of the best managers in the country? Would you love to play under him, Sean?
Like you just described him there, and I think it was the goalkeeper that gave an interview straight after him. Mickey Graham couldn't talk on BBC Sport, and he was just got too emotional. The goalkeeper came on, and the goalkeeper, without saying it, he came across to me as a guy that would run through a brick wall for Mickey Graham. And if you asked Paul there from playing, the manager has to set the tone. He needs you eating out of the palm of his hand. And I think Mickey Graham and David Power down in Tipp has these guys absolutely just, as I said, following them to the letter, following what they say to the letter of the law, believing him. He's got these guys have those players believing, and they got them believing this year that this could be their year. I mean, you would never have thought in a million years that Tipp and Cavan would be winning their provincial championships this year. Like, you just wouldn't have put them in the conversation. And they got them believing. And if you're a manager and you have the players coming together as a tight-knit group and have that belief, you can do wonderful things. And what also helps is winning. Like, if Mickey Graham and David Power sat these guys down at the start of the year and put a game plan in place, players get belief and confidence by winning games, playing your style of play. And if you can pick up a couple of results and get them believing that this could work, then, and they all row in behind it, then you have a dangerous animal going then. But look, I mean, is he up there as one of the best managers in the country? Look, for what he's achieved so far at club and now with Cavan, you'd have to put him up there in the conversation. He obviously has a long way to go before he can maybe be talked about as one of the greatest. But by God, he's certainly met his mark, and let's put it like this way, he'll go down in history in Cavan as one. There's a lot of things going around on WhatsApp at the moment, but there was a brilliant clip of, I suppose it was a local Cavan radio, straight after the game, and the commentator said that there'll be no more free dinners for Martin McHugh because he was the last manager to win. So Mickey Graham can start putting in his orders now when he goes.
Get that tab ready.
Exactly. He'll be forever revered in Cavan, as will David Power and Tipp. But they both just come across as pure, down to earth, genuine guys. But at the same time, lads, they're not just plucky guys. They know their football, and they saw exactly what they had available to them, played to their strengths, and they've reaped the rewards. And you couldn't but be happy for them, because even though I don't know any of the guys, they seem like pure, genuine fellas, and their emotions came through yesterday and today when, I saw an interview again with Power today. He's talking about his dad, who's been involved with Tipperary football for a long time, and he broke down talking about him because, Paul will tell you there, the minute you win a big game, it's great to celebrate it with your teammates, particularly at county level. But the first people that come into your head straight away after a couple of minutes after winning a big game is your local people, your family, your club mates. And, for those guys to be able to do that yesterday, unfortunately not be able to celebrate it with their own people, but for them to do it for their own people is just tremendous.
And Paul as well, like, I think it was, for me, the interview, I think it was the RT coverage at the time. God, I've watched so many interviews now between various platforms, but I think it was Galligan, I think it was RT, where he comes out And talk about the walking wounded. His eye is swelling up. There's blood every place. And then you go through, got a couple of bangs in the head. I think he got his shoulders, arms. He was like, they were like the walking wounded, but he's still there. And like some of the key moments, like that big catch that led to the goal. There was the throw ball, I think just outside the Donegal goal as well, when there was a free that was overturned and he wins it out of nothing. Some huge talk about going to war, and probably going back what you touched on, Sean, when you have a manager that really, really, you run through walls for. Well, Galligan certainly did, as did the rest of the Cavan team. But they're such powerful moments when you see that emotion afterwards, and you just see that walking wounded effect and just how far they will go to achieve their goal.
It's just brilliant, like really, like it looked like he was just after coming out of a nightclub after fighting someone, like, like,
I'm not sure what nightclubs do you go to, Paul?
Yeah, but it's just great scenes, like a true warrior, like, and as Sean said there, like if you have a good manager, like winning is everything, like, because if you have a manager that says, all right, we're going to go 14 up front and we're only going to have one defender, and it works, you're like, geez, this manager is unbelievable. Like, his theory in life is class, like, so whenever a manager puts kind of a structure in place and then you start winning, then you're like, geez, this lad knows exactly what he's on about. But it's the whole relationship there, like you kind of going back to your top there, Sean, with Liverpool. Like, Klopp came in and he took Liverpool kind of under the wing and he got to know everyone, and they all bought into his kind of strategy and his whatever kind of plans he had, and they're striving now. Like they're doing very well. Like they won the Champions or the Premier League last year and all that kind of crack. So that's the same there with Cavan. Like, Mickey Graham came in, he's got them all on the same wavelength, and I think the format this year has helped all the Tipperary and Cavan, because you've no kind of qualifiers that it's grand, like we're not supposed to beat Cork or we're not supposed to beat Donegal. If we get to a qualifier, that's where we're supposed to be. But now it's knockout, like they had no choice. You just go all out, like, and I think that really helped the teams this year, because let's say the likes of Cork or Donegal, they didn't have a lot of pre-season done and a lot of challenge matches, so this was the time to really just, like, motivation is better than any trainings that they might have done in the last 2 or 3 weeks or whatever, like, good psychological kind of sessions or all that kind of stuff. So it was great to see like Galligan, they're all going to be heroes, they're all going to be remembered for that day, and the Tipperary lads as well. So it was just, I think Conor Sweeney's speech as well in the Tipperary was something, you could just see the passion behind that as well. Like they mean every word of it, and it's not just when he said, like, oh, the players, there's 12 players at home and they're not allowed to be here as well. Like that's a real team panel, all the members of staff. That's when you know something serious is happening. So it's just fantastic to see both teams winning.
One thing it did bring home to me, sorry, Jonathan, and this is only a quick note, and don't get me wrong here for a minute, I treasure and I'm very, very proud of any ever medal I won with Kerry. But what it brought home to me was I would never have, we in Kerry, and this again isn't being big-headed, or it's just that you had huge expectations every time you went out onto the field with Kerry. You were expected to win Munster Championships, you were expected to win All-Irelands, and I feel, and I don't know how the other Kerry players feel, but I'm nearly certain 9 out of 10 of them would tell you that winning All-Irelands and Munster Championships for us there was a sense of relief to the day, and because you were just expected to do it. We never experienced what those Tipperary and Cavan guys experienced yesterday when that final whistle went. They ended a drought. They created a shock. They did something that nobody expected them to do. And I think for me, looking in yesterday, watching that, the bigger counties out there, like the Dublin team at the moment, I think somebody put up a picture of Stephen Cluxton lifting the Leinster Championship compared to Conor Sweeney lifting the Munster Cup. And it's like chalk and cheese. You had one guy who was so used to doing it. That was Cluxton's 16th Leinster Championship medal. it was more of a, oh yeah, let's pick this up and move on. Whereas Conor Sweeney was holding on to that Munster Cup as if it was a baby he was after losing in a shopping centre or something. You know, he was after finding his lost child. But it just goes to show you the bigger counties out there, they're expected. It's more of a relief to get over the line. Oh yeah, we did it. We won what we were supposed to win. Whereas for counties like Tipperary and Cavan there yesterday, you could see it in their faces. It was pure emotion from a point of view that they had caused a huge shock and done something that they weren't expected to do. And I just felt it was great to see it, because I don't think if you come from a big county where there's more pressure to win, you don't get that feeling after a big win. Even though you might try go looking for that feeling, it's not there, because it's more of a case of, thank God we got that job done, you know?
Yeah. Would you change the format?
Yeah, that was actually going to lead in. Like I've thought about this initially. Like I remember being back in 00 actually. Yeah, it was 2000, where it was the last year of the knockout and came into the back door, and Galway made the first benefit out of it. But is that something that you would? It's been caused great entertainment. I know situations are completely different, and we've pretty much been backed in the corner. That's why it's gone restored to it. Is it the way to go? Do you try and push the league into a bit more competitive and then use that as your potential, gap then to put in the club season as well? Or?
Well, my question back to you would be this, and then maybe Paul might want to step in here. Why was it changed in the first place? Why was the back door introduced in the first place?
To give the lesser counties a bit more games. Was there more chance? Was there realistically a more chance? Well, Galway did it in 98 or 2000. Were they the first team?
They were the first to win in 01. Yeah.
Yeah, 01 to the back door. Yeah.
Well, my point is this, and listen, I know where everyone's coming from in terms of, yeah, absolutely, championship is the way to go. Knockout championship is so exciting, etc., etc. But the whole reason it was brought in was for, and again, don't get me, please, the people listening in from Cavan and Tipperary did a great day yesterday.
He's often big-headed, this lad, isn't he?
But for the likes of the Cavans and the Tipperaries and the Louds and the Longforts, who, train as hard as a Kerry or a Galway or a Dublin, put their lives on hold for one game in the summer. I don't see the fairness in it, and that's why the back door was brought in. I absolutely 100% agree. The excitement of knockout championship is, you can't compare it, and we've seen it this year. It's just been brilliant. But how could you then just tell a fella from who's beaten in the first round, in, let's say things go back to normal in 2021, you play your first round of the championship in June, and you're gone, and you're back to square one again, where we were all those years ago with fellas heading off to America and all these places to play football, and counties are left with nothing to do till the following February when they're back out in the league. I'm just playing devil's advocate. Do we really want to go back to those days? I'm not sure.
Is there an argument to be made though, and perhaps maybe I'm reading too much into it, but look at the Tipperary and Cavan both wiping away huge droughts in terms of winning a provisional title. Is there not an argument to be made that the old format, maybe we've come full circle with it, that it suits the smaller teams better, that in fact, that when the bigger teams had the likes of the qualifiers and had the second chance, that you might, a lesser team might get a rattle at them once, but like if Cavan and Donegal is replayed next week, probably the chances are that Donegal are going to come back, and you would have thought will be a little bit more fired up and potentially could win it again. Is there not an argument to be made that the backdoor format maybe even suits the bigger teams better? You might beat a big team once, but you're not going to beat them twice.
That's a very difficult question. It's extremely
well,
hard.
I like to ask the difficult ones here,
Yeah.
But keep you on your toes.
I'm not certain on that. I really don't know. Like, you love to see Cavan and Tipperary doing what they did there yesterday, but like, you're looking at as like Longford or Leash or Loud or maybe Antrim footballers as well. Like when are they? I don't know. It's a very difficult one. Maybe if you had you started out with a knockout But then if they get knocked out early, they're into like a second All-Ireland, like kind of like a Christy Ring in the hurling or something like that they go into. If they all get a chance for the All-Ireland, but if they get knocked out early, there's no qualifiers. They're just into a separate competition for the teams that got knocked out early or something. I don't know, but it's a difficult one. There's pros and cons to both, and it's hard to know.
Yeah, I just remember back to 2001, and I still remember being the Connacht semi-final. It was an absolutely horrible wet day in Tuam, and Roscommon did a shock and bet Galway, which was at the time was pretty much unheard of. But then come around, Galway went through the back door. The first draw was away to Wicklow. I still remember, got things back on track, had some good wins, the likes of Cork and Armagh. We made it back through to the quarterfinal where they played Roscommon again. This was a bone dry day, splitting the rocks, and Galway bet the bejesus out of them. That's just one example that sticks into my head. For me, that's a sign of Roscommon. We're going to get them on them once, but there was no way Galway were losing a second time to Roscommon. Is that an argument? Am I reading too much into it?
Yeah, well, see, you used Cavan and Donegal as an example, Jonathan, and I get you. But like, look at Cork and Tipp. If Cork and Tipp met again next weekend, you know what I mean? Like, I know, would Cork beat Tipp next weekend? Would you fancy Cork to beat Tipp next weekend if they met again?
Not from what I saw of both performances.
Well, do you know what I mean? Like, whereas Donegal and Cavan, okay, Donegal, yeah, they probably just maybe had a bad day and they're probably a better quality team. But again, I just feel that are we if we went back to the old format, you're taking away an opportunity for counties to, get more exposure, get more games. Like if I was a manager of an inter-county team and I got my league out of the way and then I was beaten in the first round of the championship, geez, you have a long wait there again till the following February for your league game, for your league to commence, Mm-hmm. And even, for the players themselves, like Paul, you've talked about maybe them going into another competition, like you're going down then the argument of the tiered setup. Which
Tommy Murphy Cup didn't really work.
Yeah,
did.
It didn't, and no. When you go down the tiered route, I know people from other counties aren't mad about that system either. So I definitely think that a format could be looked at in terms of the provincials. I think the provincials, personally, I think the provincials are completely outdated now. Try to tell that to
the emotion of both teams, and I'm sure there were. That's exactly the other counter argument as well.
But maybe the provincials could be looked at. But I don't know. I don't know if you look at. If you look
at the hurling, it's kind of like the provincials are working well there, especially with Galway gone in now with Kilkenny, and then like the Munster Championship in hurling is always savage. But like Offaly and Carlow and Laois and Westmeath, they kind of have their own little league there, like, and it's very competitive, and they seem to enjoy it. And the Nicky Rackard and the Christy Ring finals there at the weekend, and they're very competitive. So it's
there might be something to look at there. Yeah, Kitcher, the Kerry hurlers are an hour away from being in the Leinster Championship next year. So there could be something to look at there. But I just think players want games, counties want games, managers want games, and if a team are to be gone out of the championship early June, even late May in some cases, I don't think it's an attractive proposition for a lot of counties out there, but I could be wrong. But I don't think the GA they'll move away from the backdoor system. I think the Super 8s, we got 2 years of the Super 8s, have we? 2 years of it? Yeah, so they're going to want to push on with that and explore that even more. Plus you take into account revenue, all that type of stuff from selling your Super 8 games to the TV broadcasters. You have more opportunity to sell your product. All that comes into it. Whereas your championship season would be shortened if it was knockout. But again, look, that's all hypothetical stuff.
So Sunday, we saw all the shocks in terms of the provisional finals. We didn't get the shock that maybe, as things turned out, it probably wouldn't have been the biggest shock of the three really in terms of what we saw on Sunday. But Saturday night I was lucky enough to be in Croke Park, and I know that for a lot of people watching the game was a bit like meh, whatever. But I have to say, I was totally enthralled by watching Dublin up live. I haven't seen them up close in a while now, between one thing and another, but they were an absolutely joy to watch. And yes, I know it's never good for a competition like that when you have a team so far ahead of the rest, 10 in a row now, and it looks like it could be another 10 years at least before anybody gets them. But they were just an absolutely joy to watch. This is a team that's won so much, but their work rate, their ability to catch high ball, their movement, their endeavour, even at the end, they were still bombing forward, left, right and centre. Even just watching their kickouts alone is worth the admission fee, really, to see. Not only is it the absolutely pinged out balls from Cluxon, but it's the movement all around. Every time there's one being taken, and it's something that it doesn't really get picked up on TV, but you see there's runners going absolutely everywhere. He's 4 or 5 different options straight away. The level of detail in their play, they play, I think it was their best performance in quite some time as well. I think definitely their best performance of the year. But I know the result has left not a sour taste, but a little bit of a disappointment with everyone in terms of maybe where the question where football is going and what now. But I have to say, they were just an absolute privilege to watch, and definitely the best team. And this might offend or maybe take a little twag at some of your neighbours and your fellow countymen, Sean, but I can only say the best footballing team that I've ever seen live. It was just a complete privilege, I repeat, to watch them. But your thoughts on the Leinster final? We kind of ran over it last week. I think it was the one prediction that we all got right, and it went as expected. But your overall thoughts let's go to Sean, you first again, as a probably gritted teeth in a way, but you have to be able to admire just the quality that's in front of us, and it's a privilege that it is to be able to watch them in full flow.
Absolutely, Jonathan. Yeah, look, are we jealous down here of their success? Absolutely, of course. But you know, we would regard ourselves as admirers of good football, as you are in Galway yourselves, and you can't but be impressed by this group. I mean, it's just like you just mentioned there about, you know, that even right up to the very end, they're incessant is the only word I could use for them. Really, they just never stop. They're never satisfied. They have players chomping at the bit to get on the team. They have players coming in off the bench who want to make an impression. It's a perfect storm. I mean, you know, Desi Farrell came in and took up from where Jim Cavan left off. You know, he's got an abundance of riches. Now, look, there's obviously the whole thing going on in the background about what Dublin have got and the resources and so on, and how the GA saw years ago that Dublin, that football was failing, I suppose, in the capital, and they need to do something about it. Now, have they turned them into a monster? They've probably helped. But at the same time, you know, you have to take your hat off to Dublin and what they've done with that, and they've put it into the schools, and they've got the coaching, and it's all now coming to fruition. And it's just they're a machine. They're an absolute machine. You can talk about, you know, the opposition they're facing. They don't care. They don't care who you are. They'll come out with their game plan. They'll suffocate you. They'll play open football with you. They'll play defensive football with you. They'll play physical football with you. You try and do work on Stephen Cluxton's kickouts, you can be there till the cows come home, because whatever way you've set up to counteract it, he'll find some other way. Dublin will find some other way to do it. How you go about beating them, how do you do it? I don't know. Kerry came close in the drawn game last year, and you know, you even look back at that game and we felt we came close, and we probably did come the closest that anyone has came, bar Mayo maybe a couple of times. But sure, they came in the replay and they put everything to bed and they put it right. And it's very hard to see where it ends, where this dominance is going to end. We don't know. They lost players this year and maybe gave everyone a little bit of hope and a little bit of chink of light. They've replaced them with young fellas and guys who have been on the outskirts of the panel for the last few years, and they've come in and just taken up the mantle. So, look, We all thought maybe Donegal might rattle them. They are gone. Cavan now face them in a couple of weeks' time. Can't see it, like, you just can't see it.
The leprechaun might be here.
Well, Paul's leprechaun might be out. I think they might need 20 leprechauns for Dublin, but it's just impossible to see anyone getting close. Look, 2020 has been a strange year. It's looking like it possibly will be a Mayo Dublin final. You know, I mean, in years gone by, Mayo might have ran them close. Will that Mayo team get close to this Dublin side? I don't know. But look, that's for another day. But on Saturday night, it was, you know, Meath were thrown into the Lions' den and they were absolutely torn asunder in the game. Like, I mean, what was it at half-time? 1-12 to 2 points, was it?
Yeah,
2-12.
2-12.
Yeah.
2-12 to 2 points, excuse me. I mean, lads, you know what I mean? That's you know, if you kick 2-12 in any other championship game, it might win you the match. It probably would win you the match. And they had it rattled up at halftime. It's you can't just be impressed by it. It's every fella just playing to the maximum of their ability every time. It's not they go out and maybe do it now and again. It's every day. Every day they're out and they're doing it to the maximum of their ability. And my last word on it, what I can see from looking from the outside in is that they have a group of leaders on that team that if you aren't doing it every day, you're told and you're gone. You're sitting on the bench next to Desi Farrell and he's got as good, if not better, guys to come in and do it for him. And that's a perfect storm. It's a perfect storm in a county setup, and it's very, very difficult to see how that's going to be stopped in 5-10 years, to be honest.
And Paul, I have to say, it was one of the things that, because Meath started the game pretty lively. They tore out, they had a goal chance in the first minute when they got the point out of it. They had 3 or 4 maybe quarter/half chances of goals, or one of those decent attacks where they come through. The right thing would have been to tip the ball over the bar or whatever, but they took an extra step or two, tried to force the goal almost, it felt like, and then Dublin completely swallowed them up, and there was 3 or 4 big turnovers, shall we say, from the Dublin defence. Compared to then, it felt like, now they obviously didn't, I think that 6 or 8 wides in the course of the game there as well, but it felt like by and large most of the time that Dublin they would wait for the right moment. They had no problem recycling the ball, come back. It was always the best opportunity to come through. A lad, even if he's trying to make and make a name for himself, you know, most of the time you come in and you'll try and get the Hail Mary score from out the wing or whatever. They would always turn back, work it into the player in the better position and wait and be patient to move. Their shot selection was I thought was top world. But that's the level of experience, those kind of the difference, particularly I remember thinking at half time, the difference between the naivety really of both attacks. That's just where Dublin are next level, isn't it?
They're really super. Like I go back to the Laois game there, like, and they scored 2-23 and they only conceded 7 points, and they said the performance was sloppy. That's just like they scored 29 points and they only conceded 7. That's, geez, I don't know what's sloppy. It's completely different in our club anyway. Yeah, like it was, as you said, like the game started off not too bad. I think it was 2 points each or something, and they got a goal chance. We're like, lovely, okay, we might be in for a bit of a game here. But the first goal just came from a kick out, quick hands, and it was just like just getting a knife in the back. Like it was just so quick and so efficient. And it was from then on, they just like the Meath heads went down. They were kicking that goal and the ball was dropping into the keeper's hands. And you always know that that's kind of not a great sign. That the energy is just sapped out of them, no confidence. So yeah, it's they're unreal. Like I've never got to see them, and you were privileged to be there, Johnny. But like I've never got to see them. They just seem so composed on the ball. When Dean Rock gets it, or Paul Mannion, or Kieran Kilkenny, they'll scan all the kind of options in the pitch, and sometimes they do this in the middle of the field. It's like they have a pre-planned. I seen is it Owen Merchant doing it once there once. So like they're so detailed in what they do, and everything's well thought out. And you thought, let's say, with Cavan going and a few names, they might be, they mightn't be as good. And then they've got like Paddy Small. It's like he's been playing there for the last 5 years. Bugler there, Sean Bugler, has been doing very well. So they have serious like I think they said on Sunday game, there's 30 medals, 30 All-Ireland medals on their bench. Bringing in McMinimum, Philly McMahon, it's serious. Subs there to bring in, so it's kind of scary. And I don't know if you've seen it there, but a lad from Westmeath there, Donlan, I don't know his first name, but he put in a big letter there, or email to the GA headquarters, or asking all the 11 other Leinster county boards to come together to come up with a plan, because it's not dying, it's dead, the Leinster football. So that's probably coming back to the format again. What's good and what's bad, there's pros and cons there. So it's a fair play to them. I think Cavan are going to beat them though.
Ever the optimistic, but look, just to wrap up on Dublin, we will talk about structures and stuff like that, because the games are coming less and less now. We are getting to the nitty gritty, so we will have a bit more time in coming weeks to talk a bit more in depth about next year, and hopefully it'll be out of plan. But Dublin, you'd have to say, just to wrap up on them, for me, they're a joy to watch. I know there's a lot of people kind of starting to come when we see that letter there as well. There's other people making jibs that, oh, look at the money they're spending. Money has to be spent wisely. They have fantastic structures in place. They've got some unbelievable footballers on the pitch, but I just don't think, I'm not sure, Sean, will Sean Kelly be let back into the Kerry after that big improvement that he gave, and the way he kickstarts? It would take a Kerry man, all right, to kickstart the Dublin revival.
It would, yeah.
We might send him around to a few more counties now, maybe.
Yeah. Look, and that letter that Paul refers to there, I read it today in detail. It was some very, very good points. And again, look, that's a conversation for another day. But you're right. I mean, it's sure, you can give a fella all the money in the world, or you can give a county all the money in the world, but they have to know what to do with it. Now, the amounts of money and so on, that, again, discussion for another day. But right now, it's where we find ourselves. Where do we go from here? They're just a fantastic unit. And I mean, what summed it up for me there was the last attack of the game, the goal. McMenamin went through, had a shot, keeper saved it. And I think it was McMenamin. I think, was it Scully or Howard that got the touch?
Scully pushed it in.
Scully?
There was lads lined up.
Well, McMenamin nearly killed him to try and get it himself, And they were winning by 117 points. Do you know what I mean? And they were still two fellas trying to get a goal right at the last. That's just the hunger. It's hunger. It's competition for places. And it's demanding the best out of each other every time they go onto the field. That's what they have over everybody at the moment. Of course, they have quality and skill, and they have the best of strength and conditioning coaches and analysis and all that. But at the end of the day, you need to be able to kick the ball over the bar and into the net, and they can do it better than anyone at the moment.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And if we look back then at our predictions from last week, the Dublin one was one that we all, of course, got correct. But I have to say, for me, that's where, from the football point of view, where it went rapidly downhill after that. I went for the two favourites. In the other games, there's probably a lot of we know Paul, of course, went for his beloved Leprechaun in Ulster, but I didn't have any winners in the other two. How did you get on yourself, trying to pull up the league table here? Was it one of the three as well?
Same as you, Jonathan. Yeah, I went for Dublin, Cork, and Donegal. So Paul got the better of us there with his Cavan prediction.
Just looking at that, he must have pulled the wild card on him, because I see he's the magic 3 points, full mindset there, which is a full row of them, which is incredible, really. That was whatever about getting the Cavan around. He went for Tipperary as well. It seems I'm a bit strayed down there on a bunch of people on one, but there is Paul here, top of the class. We'll have to get him maybe an extra piece of coin out of that Leprechaun's hat. Paul, I didn't think you were going to go for the two outsiders, but it did, and it worked. We have no football this weekend now, so footballers take a break and the small ball takes over. If we look back on last, of course, the quarterfinals were on last Saturday. This was one where I think it was almost a clean sweep for everybody. The two games went as any normal person with any sort of knowledge would go for. Any comments? You try to stick it in the neck there, Sean, but it was looking hairy until maybe the red card.
Listen, Exactly. No, I stand by. Look, Galway probably deserved it in the end. But I felt Tipp were in a good place coming into the game. The red card didn't help, but they were thereabouts. I suppose looking back, yeah, I put all my eggs in the Tony Kelly basket for the other one. All right. He had an injury. He got injured in the warm up, from what I gathered. He hurt his ankle, Tony Kelly, so that hindered him.
It was unfortunate because
and
good form.
He's been brilliant, yeah. And when I saw Shanahan getting those 2 goals, I thought my luck was in. But fair play to Waterford. They had some excellent performances. Stephen Bennett was excellent. Desi Hutchinson, who I didn't realise he had a bit of a soccer career, had he? He went away playing soccer for a while and came back.
He did, yeah.
He was in England. He was in England, was he?
West Brom, I think, was it?
Yeah, no, he only came back. I think it was only the year gone by as well that he's recent enough addition to the squad.
Yeah, I mean, he ended up with 2-2, and Jack Fagan got 1-1.
I told you that full back line was there for the taking.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
Particularly if they go over on their ankles in the warm up, any full back line is for taking. That is, of course, the two out of two there. I think a lot of people, if we look quickly at the league, would have been in a similar situation. For that, they were kind of the expected. Yeah, there's a number of people on too. Oh, would you look at that? They've even been nice enough to put me on top of the table for once in my life.
You did that yourself.
That doesn't have. I think Paul must be there on goal difference or something like that. He's down now. There is a number of people that won. There's actually a couple of zeros as well. So they were going they were taking the Paul strategy for the hurling in the week gone by, but. Look, we can't really talk about the hurling in my mind really about touching on a point, and I'll sound like a hypocrite if I don't go here. I think we mentioned 2 weeks ago now where black cards and cynical play, for want of a better word, being rewarded, and in both provisional finals in both the football and the hurling, Galway were on the receiving end of cynical play, and it didn't work out in their favour. If you go back to the Leinster final in the first half, Niall Burke was pretty much through on goal. Hugh Lawler pulls him back. The referee doesn't give the advantage. The ball is poked into the net, but we come back. Somehow the referee didn't give any a card to Lawler at the time, so you got away a little scot-free on that one. And then the following day, we used that high-profile one at the end where there's the drag back down at the perfect time just outside the line. A black card. Goes to Mayo, but it has no impact on the game because the game is over. And you'd say ultimately, in both cases, that Galway were on the receiving end. But it'd be remiss of me. And while the decision for the red card, for Barrett's red card, was the one that was probably talked about most, and it did have definitely, you have to say, helped Galway come back into the game. Now, I think they were slowly maybe edging back into it at the time, but it definitely was a huge factor in the overall course of the game. But then, despite that, Cavan is coming through on goal, and he hates picking people out because I sound like a bit of a hypocrite here. I have done it prior to the black card, and we probably would all do it again if the situation arose. But there was the double-edged one really, where he puts his hand out to try and stop him, realizes he can't, and then just goes to the hips really and completely pulls him down, like what you might do to trying to catch a sheep out in the field or something like that is the only description. From the resultant free, it's tipped over the bar for a point. Probably the chances are it was heading towards the goal the first time. Such a powerful player. There's definitely a high percentage of him getting a goal initially. So cynical play, your thoughts on it? I know, Sean, you were very proactive in terms of your, I suppose, distaste really in terms of seeing Peter Cavan on Scry, kind of lauding and encouraging and say the good things about cynical play. But I'll go to you first, Paul. There's been a lot of, I suppose there's no other way of putting it, but hurling snobs, whatever way you want to call it, traditional hurling fans, or whatever your choice of word really is, where the traditions of the game, and they do not want to see a black card introduced to hurling under any circumstances. But there's no doubt that there is an issue now. I'm not sure if the black card is the solution, because we've seen it really where Take the Connacht final, the football final, where the black card didn't really work. There was a player gone off, but it didn't impact the result in the game. The opportunity didn't come arise. Maybe a sin bin is the way to go. But your thoughts really on where you go? Like you've played both codes as well, or do play both codes. Your just overall thoughts on where we're going with this. What does hurling need? Is there anything we can do to take it out, or will this always be part of the game and sportsmen will do whatever it takes to try and win?
I think, well, like you said there, like that it's taken away from the game. I'm not sure what the final score was, but I think it was like 322 to, I don't know, maybe 223 or something like that. I don't know what the final score was. It's serious scoring. Everyone said that the game was enthralling. It was on the edge of your seat stuff. So I don't think this black card, like if it's not fixed, what does it say? If it's not broken, don't fix it. So I think that like it's been going on for years. Like 20 years ago, you know, if a lad turns the full back, take him down, take him down, take him down. You know, so like I think maybe we're going into a bit too much of like Sky Sports of like the Jamie Carragher and Gary Neville like analysing, but bit too much. But because like it's been there for years, why is it only coming to light now? Maybe because it's blatantly obvious the way they're doing it. But if they weren't really rugby tackling them, they'd maybe give them a good slap, and that would stop them running in. Like, so, I think I don't know. I wouldn't bring it in. I don't think, because it's been there. It's been there for years, and I just think people are just getting a bit hyped up about it. But I think leave it the way it is. I think you have to take them down. Like it's just a kind of it's an unwritten rule, but you just got to take them down. But the game in general, like Galway, where you know it was nip and tuck there the first half. It was interesting because it was nip and tuck, and David Burke was Galway sweeper, and then Brendan Maher was Tipperary's. But Brendan Maher was sitting back a lot, and Davy Burke he was sweeper, but he got up a lot to midfield, and I think he got a point there as well. And they kind of rotated. I think Pádraig Mennion was there then for a while as well. So it was very interesting to see they actually kind of had a rotating sweeper there. I felt anyway. I wasn't at the game, but like that's the way it kind of looked. And it was nip and tuck there. Carl Mannion got a great goal there for Galway. Like he just sold your man in from the dummy. Like
it was unbelievable. You're even watching the replays. Like how did he get a goal out of that for where he started off and the way he disguised his body movements? It was just unreal.
Yeah, it's just the jink. Like, you know, I've got that jink so many times.
I bet you pulled him down though. There would have been. That's why you don't want the black card.
I don't even get that close. So yeah, it was a great goal, and then they really drove on. But then Tipperary, they were 4 points up at half time, and you know things were kind of looking a bit worrying there for Galway. But it was nip and tucked in for the next 20 minutes. But then the red card was it was definitely a good influence for in the game that Galway took advantage of. I think the first yellow card is like I don't see where the yellow card is. I actually don't see what actually happened. The second one, he tips him on the helmet, and I suppose you know he tips Concannon on the helmet. Concannon was very cute as well. He kind of went into the challenge, but you know as any good forward would do, like you know TJ Reid or any of them, they'll work it to their advantage. So that was a big influence on the game. And then like Aidan Hart got the goal in, and that really there was no really coming back from that. And then Galway just kind of park the bus. If you can do that in hurling, I don't know, can you? But they kind of, you know, retreated, and they just grinded out the win, and they were fully. It was like Galway and Tipperary in 2016 there was only a point, and in 2017 there was only a point. They always seem to bring out the best in themselves, or in the two teams. So like there's just free flowing, it's hurling, it's all out. Like you know there's a lot of tactic going on, and you know it's just great to see. I thought the performances there, like Conor Whelan again, he just seems to be so consistent. He mightn't be scoring a lot, but he's doing a lot of, like, he set up Concannon for his goal, like Conor Cooney's out the wing, he just hit it back in wheel one at turn your man, and then just a lovely timed hand pass, and Concannon buried it to the net. Joe Colmany got 1-3. He's so hard to mark, like he's out in the middle of the pitch there, like he's such a strike of a ball. It's awful hard to get close to Maranton, so he was very good as well. And like Canning as well was he got a sideline.
Like, kept Galway in the game, really, didn't he? Really earlier on, where things mightn't be going that well, but he was still just knocking over frees left, right, and centre. Such an asset for your team when you can stay in games like that.
Yeah, he's so experienced as well, so cute and experienced and wise, like, reading the game, and just so used to it, like time and off the ball, let's say, for breaks and stuff like that. So they're really coming good now. That win, like, they kind of it was a really good test, and now they're coming into Limerick now this weekend, and I'll be all for Galway again. I think I'm obviously going to be all for Galway anyways, but like I think they have momentum now, and they had a good test, and the energy will be up now after that win there now, so yeah, I think it was a, but to go back to your question, I wouldn't have a black card. I don't know what your views are on it, but I think as a forward, I know if I got taken down with 2 minutes to go, I'd be disgusted, but you've got 68 other minutes there before that, and you had your chances to put the ball over the bar or something like that. So I know I wouldn't be for the black card anyway.
So, Sean, we'll give it. I'm interested to know your opinion really on it, particularly as a high-level footballer looking in at the sport of hurling, and where there, as you can see, I suppose there's a lot of opposition to it in hurling. We've seen a number of people coming out of it, but even if we look at it in Gaelic very briefly first, is it helping the game, or in the black card, is that helping the game, or is it pulling it back down? Forgive the pun, but. We saw, like, even you look at the Ulster final, the first one for Cavan, I thought was, I suppose, by the letter of the law, it is a kind of a drag back. I thought it was, maybe I'm misreading the situation. I thought it was just kind of clumsy. He just kind of fell across him, and I don't think he intended to take him out of the game. Repeat, from the letter of the law, it probably is. So maybe can't go too hard. But the second one in the second half looked just like a little push. I just was staggered and astounded. And bear in mind as well, that for the first black card, prior to that, it was Cavan started the game blistering, and then Donegal kind of came into it and knocked on a couple of scores when they had the extra man there during the first black card. When I saw the second one come, I thought, this is it, curtains, but they held on. But just on the whole, the black card thing, I think everybody's in. Well, maybe not. Maybe I'm speaking too much, but I think a lot of people have the opinion that something needs to be done to cut out the cynical fouls of the game. But maybe it's not the black card, maybe it's a sin bin, maybe then that's going to be too much admin. You take in club games as well. How do you manage it? I don't know, but your thoughts on it. Firstly, is it working in football, and then what do you think of looking across at hurling with it?
I've never been a fan of the black card, Jonathan. I just felt, okay, yes, the cynicism had to be tackled, and fair play, they looked at trying to do something about it. But I just think you're taking. I think there's enough for a referee to be doing in a game. I think you're taking the power away from the referee. Now, look, we all have had our bad days with referees, and we've had our good days. But at the end of the day, the referee is the referee. He's the experienced official who is reffing these really high-profile games for a reason, because he's been through the coaching courses. You have to give the power back to the referee. That's my opinion. Now, bringing it in hurling, I don't think it would work. I honestly don't think it would work. The game is, compared to Gaelic football, I think it's a lot quicker. It's played at a higher pace. I feel there's a lot more close contact. So trying to nitpick black card offences in hurling, I think you're wasting your time. I agree with Paul 100%. I think you just have to take it on the chin sometimes that, there is going to be, let's put it like this, tackles that are done,
with no intention of making of trying to get near the slitter.
In the heat of a game, a fella's going to make a decision to, to make a tackle that he has to.
Let's dance.
And it should be then over to the referee. Well, it should be over to the referee then. The power should be over to the referee. I think the same should happen in Gaelic football. I just think the cynicism in the game has creeped more into Gaelic football than it has in hurling. and that's why the black card was brought in. But it's not enough of a punishment. It's not. Like the big one for me was the last minute of that Dublin Mayo final, where there was the Mayo had the kick out and there was Dublin forwards pulling Mayo back.
It's almost like
down,
you talk
left,
about
right,
the movement of like this, the trigger, but I didn't see a symbol or anything like that at the time, but there was a collective, okay, let's dance here, and then away we go.
It was a collective thing. Now, look, I don't want to be looking at other games and turning it into another, another code. But one thing we have adopted from the AFL in Australia is that advanced mark. Now, I think it's a joke that should be scrapped straight away. It's something that hasn't worked. It's nobody likes it. I haven't heard one person out there, genuine GA person, laud the advanced mark rule. It's not. Now, some teams are using it for their advantage, particularly Tipperary there at the weekend. Conor Sweeney got, out of his 7 points, 2 were marks. Fair play. They worked it, they got the scores. But I hate it personally. But one thing that we could look at in Gaelic football from the AFL is the 50-metre penalty. And I know, I certainly think Kieran Donaghy has mentioned this before, is where any cynicism, abuse to a referee, drag downs like we've seen Peter Canavan, highlighting as being great defensive work, or, the Dublin forwards that pull down those Mayo backs. If a referee sees that, then the team that are offended against automatically get the ball 50 metres up the field. Now, wherever you are in the field, that brings you towards the opposition goal, and it may stamp out that type of thing. I think it's a great rule. I see it in the AFL. Any little back chat to the ref, a high tackle, anything like that constitutes a 50-metre penalty, it's done. And it's a real sickener for the opposition team, because you're conceding a lot of ground there. It could go from, like, let's say, bring it back to that instance where those Mayo forwards were pulled down. If the Mayo backs were pulled down, by the Dublin forwards, there was still plenty of time left in that game. If the referee decided, no, that's not on, that's a 50-metre penalty to Mayo, they go from their 13-metre line where the kick-out was to be taken from, all the way up past midfield, and all of a sudden now Mayo have a chance to launch an attack within Dublin's half, and they could have got a draw to the game or maybe got on to win it. So it would really cut out a lot. The black card isn't enough. The sin bin, yeah, okay, I maybe it's not a bad one to try, but again, that could be done at inter-county level a lot easier than in a club game down here in Division 5 in Kerry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where trying to keep all that admin on, trying to keep on top of all that. But certainly, for me, the black card, it's you have your certain amount of fouls that comes under the black card heading. I just think it's too much for referees. The power needs to be given back to the referees. Keep it simple. Let them, if there's cynical play, let the referee have one punishment for it, whether it be a 15-metre penalty, or let just give the power back to the referee to decide. They're experienced enough. If they feel that it constitutes a yellow or red card, let them make the decision. But these black cards are not. It's not stamping it out. It's not doing anything to curtail it. Let's bring in something that will really sicken teams that do it, and it will stop. But until then, can see the black card doing it. Black card in hurling doesn't work for me. I think it doesn't work for me. I'd be with Paul on that 100%.
Well, there's unity in the camp there. I don't want to rush too much on it, but just the 50-metre penalty, I've heard that discussed, and maybe we can do a trade and send back the advanced mark and take that one back instead. That definitely works for cynical play out the pitch. But someone's coming through on goal the last minute of the game, they're pulled down at the edge of the penalty area. There's a reason why they're pulling them down at the outside, because they don't want to give away either a goal chance or a penalty, say. It doesn't really benefit that situation, does it really? Like, you're 2 points down, you have to come all the way out to the 50 or whatever.
It doesn't. And again, I suppose the most famous one there was Sean Cavan's one. I suppose that's what started
it all. Led to the whole thing, didn't it?
Yeah, he pulled down. Was it Tommy Freeman? It was a Monaghan player anyway, in a game in Buckland Park. Was it McManus? It was McManus. Yeah, was it? Yeah. Sorry, it was. Yeah, I mean that's a 50-metre penalty.
Is that just once in a? Because I don't know if I ever have we seen the most blatant one since that? Is that just a once off and everyone kind of keeps going back to it? Like, do you know what I mean?
Exactly, we haven't, and I'm sorry, like, you know, if I'm playing for Kerry in an All-Ireland final and it's me and Conor McManus, and I know if I pull Conor McManus down to stop him scoring a goal to beat me, I'm pulling him down 10 times out of 10.
You wouldn't even need to stop the goal you'd like to do it anyways.
Well, if I could get close to him anyway. But 10 times out of 10. And I'm sorry, but that's just... these things happen in contact sport in that particular instance. Now, am I saying that it's right? It's not, but it does happen, and it's contact sport. It's going to happen. But what I'm talking about is like that's just a rare occurrence, you know. And as Paul said, we haven't seen a lot of that since. But I'm talking about the ugly stuff, like the example of Dublin pulling down Mayo backs there with very little left in the game. That type of stuff, you know, that's so blatant and so in your face that it's, you know, going back to the Sean Cavan and McManus one, that was done out of pure reaction. You know, he looked around, he knew he had to do it. Was it pre-planned? It probably wasn't. You know, it probably wasn't by him. Whereas the Dublin forwards, they knew they wanted to stop that kick out coming out from Mayo. So they all got on it and they all made sure that their men were going nowhere. That was planned. You know. So I think the punishment should fit the crime. That's basically, and it should be given back. The power should be given back to the referees to do that.
I think I'm just going to jump in there. I think Sean is right there. Like you Gaelic football is kind of slowed down a lot to hurling. So like in the football, you could be hand passing it back in the midfield sector for ages, and then as let's say a wing forward or maybe a wing back, you're after making a dart and run, and you're after passing your wing forward, and he can just easily drag you back, and there is no real penalty because the referee can't watch every kind of off the shoulder run. Like, it's just impossible. So I think that it's a very hard. There's something. I think a 50-meter penalty would, like, if I'm on the 50-meter line and I'm after running off some lad, and then if the referee sees it, the free is in on the 13-yard line, he's not going to do it, like, you know, because it happens all the time, and the game is not free flowing anymore because people are just easily dragging their jersey, body checking them, and there's no real penalty. Like the black card, I don't think it's working anyway, and I think I haven't heard about that actually 50-meter mark, and I think it makes a lot of sense that, you know, even if you're on the halfway line and you're pulling a lad back, you've got a free in between the 45-yard line, the 21-yard line, and it's like the free takers there, like Dean Rock wouldn't miss, any like Killian O'Connor or any of these top forwards, they won't miss. So like then the game will be more free flowing. There could be more goals in it because you can't drag lads back anymore. So I think that would be that's definitely something, because it'd be way better than the advanced mark anyway, for sure.
I think how often do we see a referee, and this will be the last word on it for me, Jonathan, but how often do we see a referee who's following the play in the field? He looks in, he's watching inside, and he sees a foul inside ahead of him, and he calls that a free before the ball is kicked at all. You know, if a corner back might be hanging off a corner forward and he sees that free. Do you know what I mean? So that's punishable. That's a free on, you know, inside in a scoreable position. Paul's right. The referee is looking forward. He doesn't have peripheral vision all the time. He can't see left and right of him or a runner from behind him. So that's where your linesman maybe come in, radio the referee and say, number 5 checked 12 there as he was making a run. That's a 50-meter penalty. There you go. And number 5 won't do it again. He won't do it again, like, because his manager will be in his ear saying, we're after coughing up a score there where we had this under control, and because of your discipline, you're after coughing up a score against us. It'll stop fairly quickly.
Yeah, no, look, this is a subject that we'll be back to talk about in depth, no doubt again, probably when the next high profile thing was. Just wanted to touch on it initially because I didn't want to be accused of always talking about it when it's when our teams are on the say the receiving end of it. Galway definitely benefited weekend gone by, but there we are. As I said, something we will talk about a lot more. Let's look forward then. It's a busy weekend. The big ball takes a break, so we're focusing fully on the All-Ireland semi-finals and 2 pretty mouth-watering ties, you'd have to say. Saturday up we see Kilkenny, Leinster champions, play against probably a revitalised Waterford and a great victory out last time for them under Clare. Waterford are going into this with serious momentum. Let's go to you, Paul, on this one. I think that maybe I'm completely over the bar, but I don't think Kilkenny are as good as a lot of people are making out. I think for large periods of the Leinster final, the Galway were the dominant team. Yes, they have forwards that have absolutely class act and are capable, as Galway saw, to our detriment, really, in terms of those 2 goals in a minute. But not only that, but some of the other play just after that as well, and they were able to quick fire scores and the movement and the little tweaks that they've made. But by and large, they were the second team, I thought, for large periods of that game. And maybe is too much being read into those couple of pieces of magic, really, that late revival? Or do you think this is going to be a comfortable game for them against Waterford on Saturday night in Croker?
I hope Brian Coley is listening to this.
No doubt he is.
He will be
That's up on the dressing room there, and there we go.
They love that. They love this now. No, yeah, they coming under the radar. Waterford, they've got the momentum. Liam Cavan, everyone will be talking about Waterford. Jesus,
Tipp man, they're going to get over Kilkenny again. Yeah. Here we go.
So, I think you can never write off Kilkenny. You just can't.
Just for the record, Brian and whoever Kilkenny people, I am not writing off Kilkenny. I still fancy them to win on Saturday night, but I do think that Waterford are capable of getting them a good money or run for the money.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but I would agree that Galway looked very impressive and they looked very comfortable, and then Kilkenny then just got 2 goals from experience and just very good play, and they just kind of finished the job. Then, Waterford, they go back to the Clare match there. They had a great start. Desi is just left inside Hutchison by his own. It's a very good tactic. They kind of play a lot of short ball, and then if there's no option, they'll hit the 2 wings, and there's only one in there, and he's doing very well for kind of a one-man full forward line there. He's doing very well. So it's good. The match will be on Croke Park. There's loads of space there to run left and right, on the full forward line. So it'll be interesting to see who's on them. Waterford, they'll have nothing to lose. They've absolutely nothing to lose. They're coming. It's your man's first year. He'll have them well driven. They're young. They've got serious high work rate. They showed that against Limerick, even though they came out on the wrong side of it in the Munster final. So they will be they'll be going very well. And Stephen Bennett is very good on the freeze. Kilkenny can't do a lot of indiscipline, or they'll suffer, because he can score from anywhere. He's got a great poke. So Waterford, they'll have all the elements there, and then Kilkenny, you look at them and you look at the team and you're like, geez, they're not as strong as they used to be, but they're just so I can't write them off. You just can't write them off. And I know there might be favourites going into this, but they haven't really proved anything yet this year. And if they get a good performance against Waterford, they'll be very hard bet in the final as well. So it's a very hard one to call. I'm
you going the underdog. You going the underdog again this week? You went all that way last week.
Who is the underdog? Is Waterford are the underdog with the momentum that they're coming with? I don't know. So it's a hard one there. I'll think about it on Saturday morning.
Oh, look, there we go. He's going to wait till he's going to see what we pick, and then hop on. Sean, I won't push you too much on it, but who would you lock in this game?
It's like a deaf dog, Paul. It's hard to call, is it?
I don't know.
I'm going to go for Waterford. I think it's just been a funny year, and after last weekend just gone, anything can happen. I think they're coming through with a bit of momentum. I know Kilkenny, Galway should have beaten Kilkenny, really. When you look at the Leinster final, they should have. I know that experience came in off the bench for Kilkenny and got them over the line, but Galway will be kicking themselves they didn't beat Kilkenny. So I don't think Kilkenny are going as great, and I know there's the Cody factor, and they still have very experienced players all over the pitch. But I just think, I was talking to a Waterford friend today, and he's quietly confident. They played well against Limerick in that Munster final, really battled hard, and took that into the weekend. won, and they'll be fancying their chances against Kilkenny, and a great opportunity for Waterford to get back to an All-Ireland hurling final. So something just is tipping me towards Waterford on this one.
Interesting. I'll do my prediction here live on air just to put a bit of pressure on myself. It is, of course, available on iPredict.com. So this weekend, you just go down to predict, and this weekend it's just the hurling championship that takes priority. The Premier League is there as well, if that is your scene. But that was my last week's predictions. If I move forward into this week's, the first one there then is Kilkenny and Waterford on Saturday night. Incidentally, both games are available both on the Sky Mixed channel and on RT, so you have a choice while you're inclined. But in terms of my inclination here, I am going towards so Brian Cody and all the Kilkenny people watching. Despite Paul trying to stir a bit up on me there, I am locking in Kilkenny next time around, this time around. And look, I may as well. You're still going to wait for the moment and wait to close to the game. You have up until 5 minutes before throw in to make your pick. Are you going to wait for in the long grass this one and stew this over a bit longer in the week, Paul?
Yeah, I probably will. Like it's only Monday yet. So there's a lot of time to think about it. It's going to be a great game, and the two semi-finals are going to be great. Now Galway and Limerick, I'll obviously be going for Galway. I think.
Yeah, well, I may as well just before the conversation. I'll just lock in that, and I'll go save predictions. Don't forget, I keep going back to the mistake that I made a couple of weeks ago to my detriment. But I've locked in Galway there as well. Not that I need much of a conversation, but on your go, you're probably going to do something similar. You won't have to wait until later in the week to pick that one.
No, I'll be picking them. I think they're really going well there now, and like the two lads inside, Whelan and Concannon, they seem to be doing very well there. And I know, let's say Don Logue on the Sunday game said after they lost to Kilkenny, they said they've no heart. That's why they didn't win that Leinster final. They've no character, and I think
that's something to pin to the wall.
Yeah, definitely, because they really stood up there against Tipperary when the chips were down, and obviously the red card did help them, but they still had to grind it out. And the likes of Aidan Hart came up trumps, and Adrian Toohey coming on there as well. He set him up, good subs coming in there. Evan Ireland won the last three just to get them over the line there in the 70th. Third or fourth minute. So I think the only thing that might go against them is that they've been playing now. That was a hard slog, down in the Gaelic grounds. So their legs might be heavy, and Limerick would be a bit fresher. Limerick they're tipped to win it. So it will be two great semi-finals, a great weekend for a hurling fans. So I'm definitely going for Galway, and I'll be hopefully they'll do the job, and we'll get a hill ticket for the final.
Sean, I'll make it quick. I know you're in a rush off. We've actually talked about a good few different between the Dubs, the Leinster Championship, Cynical Play, Black Cards and hurling. We've covered a lot this week. I'll make it short for you. Are you going to stab us in the back again, or are you going to jump on the Galway bandwagon?
No, I'm not. I'm going to predict an all-Munster hurling final, lads. I think Limerick...
That's a good omen, I have to say. I'm delighted to hear that.
No, exactly. My results, my predictions haven't been brilliant, so you should be happy with that. No, from what I've seen of Limerick so far, they just look the team to beat, and they look that bit better than everyone else. I don't think, Paul mentioned that they're favourites going into the game. I don't think that really bothers that Limerick group. Kylie's a very, very good manager. He won't let that affect them. They'll be ready for Galway. And I just think in a tight game, they probably might have too much for you. So it'll be a Limerick-Waterford All-Ireland Hurling 2020 final, I'm predicting.
There we go. That is quite the statement. That's quite the bombshell to end the show on. I think we've managed to... give a couple of digs to everybody. We've given digs left, right and centre around the table here in terms of each other. We've thrown a couple of counties in at there and as well. Hurling fans, Dublin fans, Leinster fans, Kerry fans. It's been quite the show this week, I have to say. Thanks for all your digs and all your blows and all your knives in the back, Sean and Paul, and let's see, it's an exciting weekend ahead. Don't forget to play along on iPredict.com. Please do join the league as well, because you can't lose to a Kerry man in a hurling competition, can you? Surely. You never know. If you're not in, you can't win. It is, of course, free to join on playerpredict.com. Check out What's the Score as well to keep you up in the loop with all the latest scores as well. Not only is that we've talked about the men's senior football championship, which will be next weekend, but the hurling championship in Death. There is, of course, it's a busy weekend in ladies football, and the Camogie semi-finals are on Saturday in Cork as well. So you'll be able to keep up to date with all the scores on on What's the Score, even if I get myself right, the What's the Score app. You're going to be busy again this weekend, Paul, keeping everyone up to date. So you're definitely the place to jump on if you are to that. But let's leave it there for tonight, folks. Thanks for watching. Stay safe, folks, and we'll chat to you all